That's from the song. It's in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Next up, we will be discussing Pulp Fiction from 1994. Pulp Fiction was written and directed with story by Quentin Tarantino. And also, story credit goes to Roger Avery. Starring everyone in Hollywood.
Yeah.
John Travolta. I mean, this is like...
This put a lot of people back on the map or on the map for the first time.
That's exactly it. I think it put a lot of people back on the map for sure. So John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, Ving Rhames, Harvey Keitel, Eric Stoltz, Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, Christopher Walken, Rosanna Arquette, Peter Green, Phil Lamar. Just all the people.
Yeah.
Overview. A burger-loving hitman, his philosophical partner, a drug-addled gangster's mall, and a washed-up boxer converge in this sprawling, comedic crime caper. Okay, so Pulp Fiction. I know what we're going to do. I've seen this. Jesse, you've seen this.
Oh, yeah.
Jasper.
Yes.
Had you ever seen Pulp Fiction before?
As I always say, bits and pieces. This, again, was when Jasper wasn't allowed to watch movies like this. Because I was too young.
This is the reason we're doing Tarantino this season. Because my mind was blown back on GCU number 20 when I found out you had never seen Kill Bill. And then my mind was extra blown when I found out you never... Kill Bill, okay, I get it. It's a bit more poppy, it's fine. You know, whatever. You hadn't seen Kill Bill. Pulp Fiction is cinema history. So I was blown away that you hadn't actually properly seen this movie.
That pretty much kicked off that whole outtake episode that they really love in Lithuania.
You're loving that outtake. You're loving.
I just like to point out that my favorite bakery is the Lithuanian bakery here in town.
Is it?
Just thought I should say that.
Shout out to the Lithuanians. So no, that GCU episode 20 outtake is our most listened to GCU and Grawlix podcast, most listened to episode in the last many months. And I'm like, what? Why? I might have found a better outtake.
I'm literally just sitting there listing off movies to you.
I know. It wasn't even like, in theory, I was like, yeah, this will be a fun little bit. It's not even that fun. It's just me like, yeah, no, that movie's not great. Yeah, no, that's fine. So it's, you know, anyway, Jasper, now that you've seen it, what did you think of Pulp Fiction?
This one was weird for me because I didn't get I want to say the layout of the movie. Why it kept moving, you know, across kind of what I felt like timelines.
Did you not know it did that?
Well, because I think I had looked away when they did the first title change.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, where are we now? I for some reason, the biggest thing I fell in love with this movie is Samuel L's character.
Oh, yeah.
And like, just the dude is like a killer, but he is so calm. I liked him and Travolta together, and then the kind of love story between Travolta and Uma was, you know, pretty good. It was weird to see where a lot of memes and a lot of references have been in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like it's
got to be so strange. Well, maybe not, but to me, it seems like it'd be so strange to revisit something like Pulp Fiction decades removed. It influenced movies. It influenced pop culture. It's the Travolta like confused meme is still going around. How many years after the movie came out? Like, that's a fairly recent meme even.
Yeah.
Like it's been so influential. So it's got to be like one of those things where, did you have a lot of moments where you watch it and you're like, oh, okay, that's where that come from?
Although I looked it up before, the Travolta looking around thing, I didn't know that was from Pulp Fiction until I was like, okay, I got to look this up and see where it's from.
Mm-hmm.
The English do you speak it line. My brother loved that one because he always used it on me if I skipped up on a sentence, but it was, again, another crazy, like, moving movie.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite scenes was when that kid comes out of the bathroom and shoots at him and doesn't even hit any.
Uh-huh.
And they're like looking around on their body to see if they got hit. I think Tim Roth, I thought he'd have a little bit bigger part. I thought they would kind of extrapolate on that those two a little bit more.
No, him and Honey Bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like bookend. They're in the bookend scenes of the movie, the beginning and the first and the last scenes.
He doesn't even have a name. His name is Pumpkin. In most,
Is it?
In most cast, like you look at like IMDb, he's referred to as Pumpkin.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then there's just some really screwed up scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole basement scene with the pawn shop owner is just yeah.
This movie, it's so funny, like rewatching it. I mean, I always rewatch the movie for the podcast, but I was like, and I wanted to rewatch this because it'd been a long time. But I've seen this movie so many times, I probably could have got away with not rewatching it. I know this movie front to back, or front to a little ways in, then jump back and go a little ways in, then jump back and go a little ways in. But this movie kind of exploded audiences' minds when it came out. I remember this movie was huge. And, you know, people were like, yeah, the pawn shop, the gimp. Like,
Yeah.
It kind of blew people away.
With the music, everything about this movie.
It's got such an identity. And that's a little bit of what I was saying with Reservoir Dogs. It's got the same thing, just not so extreme. It's just got such a clearly defined identity, the movie itself. Like the music, the look of it, the tone of it, how it's constructed from start to finish. It's just like such an identity. And there's so many kind of like little moving parts. There's the three stories and characters between the three intermingle. And there's so many moving parts. And even like you look at the music and it's cohesive, but very different, like the different pieces of music, but it still all glues together right. And it seems like the kind of movie that could easily fall apart or become disjointed and just not really mesh, but it doesn't. It all just is packaged well. Jesse,
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Pulp Fiction?
I don't know what to say. It kind of broke all the rules and rewrote them. You know, I mean, that's basically what you have already said. But yeah, I mean, I guess when I first watched it, I think this is a movie that really improves on multiple viewings, because my first impression was like, you know, it got a lot of hype. And this is, I don't think it won any Academy Awards, but it was nominated like 7 times. I don't know if it won anything. I don't think it won an Academy Award, which is a shame, because I put this up there with any Academy Award winners. It just, the fact that it relaunched careers is just one aspect of how great this movie kind of is. You know, like I kind of alluded to it in our True Romance talk. It's kind of like True Romance took an idea and played with it. This movie took that idea and mastered it. And I'm not even 100% in love with the jumping back and forth in time dynamic in a movie, but in Pulp Fiction, I will forgive it 100%, because the way that it bookends is so satisfying.
Mm-hmm. So Pulp Fiction, and of course it won lots of other awards, like I think Tarantino won the Palme d'Or, or however they pronounce it, for director. But it won Best Original Screenplay, Tarantino and Roger Avary.
Oh.
So it did get an Oscar for the screenplay.
Okay, good.
So, and then, like you said, it was nominated for a bunch of stuff. Best Picture, Best Actor for, this is so strange to me. Best Actor, I guess it makes sense. Travolta does have a bigger role. Best Actor for John Travolta, nominated. Best Supporting Actor for Samuel L. Jackson, nominated. Best Supporting Actress for Uma Thurman. Best Director nomination, and Best Film Editing nomination. I guess I don't think about it. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson his character is much more memorable to me, and like, he's just cool.
I feel like he's the heart of the film, really.
If you're going to pull like a character who has like development, and you know, if you're going to pull any kind of profound meaning out of the movie, you're getting it through his character.
Right.
But Travolta does actually have quite a bit of screen time. He is one of the main characters.
And he's a really good character. So
Travolta. I mean, I hate his character, and I'm not a big fan of Travolta, but it is good. He's good in it. It's an interesting character. I just say I hate his character because like he's a heroin. I'm assuming it's heroin. I don't know what all drugs you shoot up. But
it was heroin.
He's a heroin addict. I guess maybe he's not addicted. Maybe it's manageable. But anyway, he's a heroin using like dirtbag hitman. So he's not like, I'm not super fond of him.
And a pretentious one at that.
Yeah. But he's entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
I always remember, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I always remember that hearing Travolta didn't want to do the role because he was nervous about playing a junkie. He's like, this is going to ruin my career. What are you talking about? And supposedly, this is, I don't know, hearsay that I heard from someone probably 8 to 20 years ago. Supposedly his agent's like, your career's kind of over. You need to take this role.
When thank goodness he did, you know?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's not true, but if it is, his agent's on point, and I hope he got a raise because, yeah, this worked. I find his character most likable for the kind of through most of the Uma Thurman bit. Mm-hmm. He's interesting to watch through that because I'm assuming his character's high, but he seems kind of dumb, like just in a slight stupor through most of that.
Yeah.
Their dance scene is so ridiculous.
They chew the scenery in their scenes. It's so crazy. Mm-hmm. And they do that whole, I mean, like, okay, so like this is a thing I wanted to point out between the two movies because we kind of mentioned it in True Romance, how it's kind of like nonstop dialogue in True Romance, and that's what kind of hooks us. But and that's what Tarantino is known for, is his dialogue. You know, like he's known for that. It's kind of a spastic, energetic, whatever, you know, impassioned delivery of whatever it is, the topic that they're supposed to deliver. But in Pulp Fiction, he nailed some weird silences that are just as engaging. And I think that's what really pushes this movie into the next level for me, is that not only does he build tension with dialogue, he also builds tension with silences in ways that still keep you watching.
No, you're totally right. I mean, and Uma Thurman has that whole like the awkward silence talk, but one scene I've always liked, and I don't know why, because there's just nothing happening, but it's following Bruce Willis to his apartment.
Yeah.
When he goes back to get the watch.
Yeah, I love that. I was totally engaged in that. And just this was a time when Bruce Willis was still accepting direction, and you can tell because he's so good in that scene. Like, you're just like, you smug. You have no reason to be smirking, but you just think you got away with it. You're making Pop-Tarts.
Making Pop-Tarts. I noticed Vincent goes to the bathroom several times in this movie.
Yeah, he's got a real bladder problem, man.
He goes to the bathroom like 3 times in this movie. And it's weird because I don't remember other characters going to the bathroom in most movies ever. It's just not a thing. He's always going to the bathroom.
Ultimately, it's his undoing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is for sure. This is a little spoiler on my rating, but watching this almost kind of made me wish I rated Reservoir Dogs slightly lower.
Oh, yeah.
And that comes into the problem of like comparison, but it's like this takes on a lot of aspects of Reservoir Dogs that I think are great, because Reservoir Dogs is almost entirely, not entirely, but almost entirely dialogue driven. Pulp Fiction for the most part is almost entirely dialogue driven, except it's like that plus the Reservoir Dogs is good, but the directing in Pulp Fiction and just the vision of it, like it's just that much better. There are fantastic sequences that work as just, they're quiet sequences building tension, and it's great. And then there's interesting choices of when we first see Bruce Willis's character. It's that long scene where the camera's just locked on him, where Ving Rhames is talking to him, but we don't see Ving Rhames till like the end of the conversation. It's just locked on Bruce Willis's face as he's watching an off-screen Ving Rhames give him this speech. And it's like, that's such an interesting decision. That decision alone is like, makes you like builds mystery. Like, wait, what, what's going on? Who's telling him this? And yeah.
So much more compelling than if we were staring at, Vin Rames.
Yeah, exactly. Like he took, like that's not even a conversation. Most of it's just Ving Rhames giving him a speech. It's Tarantino obviously likes to write speeches and monologues and characters having dialogue, but then he can actually film it without it being boring. It's not, he can even take one single shot, one single nonstop lockdown take, but the fact of focusing on the person who's not talking makes it work so much better.
And he clearly knows the talent that he has because, like, that's a perfect thing for Bruce Willis to do. He knew.
Sit there and
it's like he knew.
Look sour.
It's like when he casted that, he's like, I know that I need Bruce Willis because I want someone that just does not care when I'm shooting the scene.
Jasper, you mentioned the jumping around, jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's not groundbreaking, but I guess maybe in mainstream movies at that time it kind of was. I mean, last episode we talked about The Killing, which is, I suspect, a little bit where Tarantino picked that up from, because I know The Killing was a big influence. And The Killing does the exact same thing. It's pretty close, where it'll jump back, but The Killing's focused on a certain event that it jumps around. But it's very similar. And this takes it to an extreme to where Vincent dies towards the middle of the movie, but he's in the last scene of the movie.
Right.
Just stuff like that. You see Jules and Vincent in their like goofy outfits towards the beginning of the movie, well before you find out like why they're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, Just little things like that are fun and interesting to jump around and incorporate characters in that to where you're like, wait, what's going on over there? Eventually you find out.
What did you think of the role of the wolf?
Harvey Keitel? It's a 30-minute drive. I'll be there in 10. 9 minutes and 37 seconds later.
Yes.
He drove hella fast.
Uh-huh. The wolf is fun.
He's
Harvey
the most
Keitel's
true
great.
romance character in this thing.
Yeah, you're right. He is. He's kind of a cartoon character of the ultimate, I don't know, the fixer, the cleaner,
Yep.
or whatever they would call him.
I was about to say the cleaner.
Yeah. Kind of feels like, he's probably like just a cool idea for a character that Tarantino had or seen in another movie, but Harvey Keitel was good for it. It's just like, fast talker, you're in control, everyone respects you, go. And Harvey Keitel's like, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. What did you think?
Oh, it was weird because I thought he was going to come in and like just start like basically cleaning house, but actually he kind of cleaned a house.
Mm-hmm.
That whole scene was weird because I was like, why are they so scared of his wife? Like, is she some like crazy gangster? So,
I like it though. I like it because, I don't know, just something to give them like a countdown, I guess, to increase the tension.
I like that when they're on the phone too. And he's like, I just want you to tell me that it's going to be all right, and you have a guy on the way. He's like, well, the situation is going to be all right, and I do have a guy on the way.
Yeah, he just repeats it. It'll be a wolf. Wait for the wolf. Yeah. Oh, you send the wolf?
Yeah. He's already got a built-in mystique.
Tarantino's good at writing super cool dialogue, and the right people can deliver it very well. Sometimes there'll be people in his movies that don't deliver it quite as well, and it's just like, oh, I get it, it's kind of cool, but it doesn't really work so well. But like somebody like Samuel L. Jackson, it doesn't matter what you feed him, he can deliver it. And Ving Rhames, for that matter, just like low voice Ving Rhames, like super cool. Oh, I'll tell you what now.
Yeah.
Just so good.
That scene, holy cow. Because again, that's another scene where there is dialogue, but there's these pregnant pauses, and they're just kind of standing there in this transfixed moment.
Oh man, Ving Rhames is just staring at the guy
Yeah.
on the ground, just like you get the feeling where if Butch had just like walked out or hadn't said anything, he'd have just stood there for like 20 minutes staring at the guy, just reeling, you know?
I like how he asked it. He's like, "So are we cool?" Or
Yeah. You get the impression that that Bruce Willis is still scared to death of him.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, 'cause he doesn't let go of that sword.
No.
I like his decision to go down and save him.
It's like the most selfless thing that character does.
It could be justified in that, like, he's then like, well, are we cool? Like, you know, I saved you. Are we cool? But he could have just left him down there and he probably would have never seen him again.
Right.
So you're right. He wants to leave, but he's just like, man, that ain't right. That's just not right. Even though he was about to blow his head off, you know, 5 minutes prior, he's still like, I can't leave him down there in that situation. How much of that scenario were you familiar with, like, in reference to this movie? Because I don't know how much the GIMP and all that is referenced anymore, but that was all over. There's so many references to that whole scene.
I'm about to
Zed,
get medieval.
to the GIMP. Yeah.
yeah, none
Really?
for me, yeah.
So how much did all that blow your mind?
What
What were you thinking?
I bet. I remember it blowing my mind.
I just sat there with just mouth agape. I was like, "What's going on here?" Like,
where did this movie change?
The GIMP, who has no role other than just to have a guy in a GIMP suit, they tie him up and then he doesn't do anything. And then he gets knocked out. I'm assuming like probably strangles hanging there. What was the point of him? There was no point.
I was kind of laughing when he's just like, he's like trying to scream to this.
So what was he supposed to do?
Just throw it into that next level of like really unsettling uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. The main stories, there's Butch and the watch. Let's talk walking.
I was gonna say you mentioned it.
So Jesse, I would agree with you. Walking in this does feel more like vanilla walking, whereas walking in True Romance seems like more of a more interesting. What?
Sophisticated.
He's a more interesting character. He seems more like an actual three-dimensional character versus this Walken, who's just really there to deliver a punchline.
Yeah, it's a more engaging performance. You feel, even though it's a really short scene, you feel like you get more angles to that character. Whereas this one, and the funny thing is, this, when you think about like watershed Chris Walken moments, a lot of people, this is the one that they snap to. Like, oh yeah, Chris Walken, I loved him in Pulp Fiction.
Which is interesting. And again, he's just in the one scene, although I'm pretty sure this is a much shorter scene than he got in True Romance.
Yeah.
But something that struck me is how the scene's handled, because he tells this story and it gets, kind of more and more intense. At the beginning, he stands there, or he like crouches down or kneels down or whatever. He's talking to young Butch, Bruce Willis's character, as a kid, telling him this story about his father and POW camp and all this and the watch. The way it's shot and edited, like, really is built for the turn that the story takes. And it's so weird because between edits, Walken's performance and tone completely changes. But because he starts telling him the story, and then as he's getting more, like, it's more heartfelt, like the camera's closer, you got a closer angle on Walken, and he's more intense in the lower voice, and he's like, and your father and this and that and this and that and blah 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 and this and that. And then when it makes the flip to where he's just like talking about hiding the watch in his rear, and then throwing racial slurs about
right,
about the other people that they were fighting against,
The Vietnamese.
Yes, the camera, I noticed, hard cuts out to like a front-on shot, kind of like the shot earlier. Only earlier, Walken, when he was talking to the kid, was looking off camera as if he was talking off to the kid. On the close-up, he's still looking off camera as he's talking to the kid. But then once the story gets to the punchline, like, it's going to intentionally take this weird twist into this weird racist, super uncomfortable thing about the watch and all this. Walken's staring at the camera, and his like voice is like jumped back up like an octave at least. and the delivery's like, well, it's still walking, but like the tone's totally different. It's like beyond just the performance, the way it's edited is intentionally like jarring and kind of disjointed from the earlier part of the story. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but it is all there. The whole scene, other than to like give Bruce Willis the little motivation to go back and get wrangled into this situation with the watch, it's just there for the punchline.
Yeah.
The whole scene.
Yep. Interesting thing. And I don't know if you guys have trivia on this one, but I believe this is where Deer Hunter becomes an influence or an Easter egg, because that's exactly what Chris Walken's character played in Deer Hunter, was a POW in a I believe it was Vietnam. Yeah, I believe
that
so.
seems like the right time period. Yeah.
So I mean, like, that's a direct callback to another movie that Tarantino liked or loved. So
that's interesting. I never made that connection.
I mean, it's a bizarre one because it's obviously not the same character, but it's a direct callback to something that Chris Walken was well known for and that influenced him.
That was almost the other movie we were going to pair with Pulp Fiction based on your recommendation, Jesse.
Right.
But
I'm glad we went this way because I have a much more fun cinematic universe because of it.
Well, I think we all had a much more fun viewing experience because of it. Deer Hunter is not a fun movie.
No, it's not.
It
Although I do think it's a movie that if Jasper hasn't seen it at some point, I recommend watching it once, and probably only once.
It's not happy. It's depressing, but it's good.
Yeah.
Tarantino, he kind of seems like something like Pulp Fiction. It seems like he come up with a series of just like outrageous scenes. You know, the pawn shop scene, the adrenaline shot scene, the car scene with Marvin, just a series of outrageous scenes, but he's able to connect them all, and that makes it interesting. I guess one thing that I was thinking about watching this, again, like Reservoir Dogs, they're all despicable characters. And it's definitely, especially during like, you know, Travolta buys the drugs and then he shoots up, and you've got the like stylized close up of the needle and all this and the music, and I'm like, wow, this is really dwelling on like the seedy side of things. But then I was like, well, of course it is. It's Pulp Fiction. That's what it's about. That's the purpose of it. It's all about, like, they even have the definition of pulp at the beginning of the movie. It's, you know, they're stories that focused on a lurid subject matter.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, no, that is this movie. This kind of continues the tradition of like, maybe that's what this season will be. It'll be Jasper will be just discovering a lot of these Tarantino movies, but for most part, it'll be us discovering whatever movie we connect to it, and then praising Tarantino's whatever directing it, whatever other movie.
Well, it's going to be a series of seesaw discussions about how much we love it and should we love it?
We really, yeah.
Problematic scenes, problematic dialogue.
Pulp Fiction definitely continues the problem of like, it's hard to find likable characters. Most of them aren't supposed to be likable, but even if they were, everyone's super racist. And it's not just saying racial slurs, it's the context. It's like, yeah, that's proper racism.
What was it?
In context.
Was it Bruce Willis's character straight up calls his girlfriend a mongoloid?
Yeah,
and drops the other.
Or what was her name?
Yeah, what was her name? Butch.
I don't know, but she wants a pot.
A pot belly. Yeah,
she's such a strange character too. Oh yeah, he drops the R.
Which, I mean, at least she doesn't stand for that. I mean, you know, we hit the racism. Like there's an interesting gender stereotypes in this too. You know, like it's got some moments that are pretty sexist. When you think about that whole conversation about Uma Thurman's character before we even meet her. But it's interesting because it turns it on its ear pretty quickly
Well, she like in that one scene, I mean, kind of what it feels like you're saying, because her character is introduced through Jules and Vincent talking about the big man's wife.
Yeah, and
she's the big man's wife. You don't lay hands on
isn't appropriate. You know, like a foot massage is a big deal.
Yeah, but then we do eventually, like, she's not just like kind of a prop in the story. She's a character.
Yeah, she's got agency. In fact, she's in more control than Vincent is by far. Like she is her own person. She knows where she stands, and she tells you where she stands. Like, you think that my husband threw someone out of a 4-story window because of a foot massage?
When you little scamps get together, it's worse than a sewing circle.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's all over the place because then you've got Butch's lady friend, and that's a totally different situation.
It's so hard to approach Tarantino movies in that respect.
Yeah.
At least, especially these early movies where it's like, well, they're all despicable. They say horrible things, but like they're all despicable characters. They're all based on irreprehensible criminals from 70s exploitation movies and 30s, 40s pulp novels. Like, no, they're all terrible characters. They're all bad people. But then it's like, how far can you, I don't know, use that as a defense? Jasper, how far?
A football field.
Okay.
A whole football field.
Okay. I have a feeling I know across the board star ratings on this. Is there anything else you guys want to add before star ratings? I guess we always do a little wrap up.
I don't know. Yeah, nope. I don't know what I would say.
I seen your star rating on Letterboxd, Jasper.
No,
you can't change
I'm
it.
not saying mine. Yes.
Oh, you're calling Jesse's. Okay. In that case, Jesse, what's your star rating? And what are your final thoughts and star rating on Pulp Fiction?
If y'all haven't, process of elimination discerned my rating by now, it's I'm going to give this thing a 5 because it takes everything that I love about true romance, builds on everything that he learned about filmmaking and Reservoir Dogs. And I mean, hot take, he could have stopped making movies after Pulp Fiction, and this thing, he could still be living high off the hog on this thing. I think it's a masterpiece. I'd give it a 5.
Nice.
I feel like this, I mean, I've been trying to come up with a better comparison, but this is like his Thriller, you know?
Yeah, I got it.
I mean, he's done well. I mean, he's continued to do incredible things since, but I think everything is going to get compared to Pulp Fiction.
That's a good point. Even now, like, how do you not?
You don't top it. You just continue to do things, that bread.
Even if you can manage to like put together a movie that in some way, like if you look at it, you break it down, like execution, story, like you're like, yeah, maybe that's a better movie. Pulp Fiction, just the cultural impact.
Yeah.
The impact on cinema. Jasper, what's your star rating on this bad boy?
I went with a 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Yeah. I kind of like right where this movie started, where they're just kind of talking going down the hallway, and just kind of like the feel of the movie. And then kind of when I sat back and watched it as like a piece of cinema, I was very enjoying it. Like I said, Samuel L., I almost gave it a 4.5, but Samuel got me up to a 5.
Really?
Yeah.
He was known, but I mean, I think this is Samuel. This is Samuel L. Jackson. This is what I think.
He's a mushroom cloud laying,
the best. One of the best line, MFer. One of the best lines in anything ever.
Oh man, when they're having that conversation in the car with the cleaning it. Oh my god, I thought Vincent Vega was going to die right there, and that was after he already died.
Yep. I'm giving this a 5 stars. Like I said, it made me wish I'd rated Reservoir Dogs slightly lower, like a 4.5, just because there needs to be room for Pulp Fiction above it.
Right.
Like, they're not on the same level. They're good. Like, Reservoir Dogs is great, Pulp Fiction, you know, I would agree with what Jesse said. Like, it takes like the best aspects of, you know, his writing in True Romance and like everything in Reservoir Dogs, and just it's next level. Like, combines it and improves on it in every way. And the cinematography is amazing. I had said thought he had, you know, probably had quite a bit larger budget for Pulp Fiction after Reservoir Dogs. Rewatching it, and I could look at the hard numbers. Rewatching it, there's not, without a doubt, like the production is so good in this. But yeah, I agree with Jesse. It's a masterpiece. I agree with both of you. It's 5-star. It's real good.
This will be the first ever 5-star, 5-star, 5-star for sure. Is it the first ever double 5-star from you and Jasper?
I don't think it's the first ever double 5-star. I'm trying to think of what else might have got it. Something like Terminator, maybe, or something.
Okay.
Predator, something like that might have got a double 5-star. But this is definitely the first 5-star 3-way. Why do you get a funny face when I say it like that, Jasper?
It just sounded wrong.
You joined us in this 5-star 3-way.
5-star Grawlix.
Did it sound so wrong, or did it sound so right?
Ah, yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
That sounded like it was supposed to be low, but wasn't.
Oh yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I think with some Barry White in here. Did you know Steve Buscemi is Buddy Holly in this thing?
Oh, that's it. That's the thing I wanted to mention. Not until this rewatch. And you could barely see his face, but that's the voice. Gives him away.
The voice gave. I didn't get it until right after he left. He left though.
Uh-huh.
I was like, was that Buscemi? Like,
I'd never noticed that before. Till this rewatch. Why? It's so funny. Like, it's just like, you literally like can't hardly see his face. Like, you see his face a little bit, but most of the shots you can't really see him clearly. It's very interesting. I guess it's probably like, well, I like the Steve Buscemi guy, but I don't really have a role for him. Hey, you want to play Buddy Holly?
You want to be Buddy Holly?
You want to be Buddy Holly, waiter?
You want to be Jerry Lewis? And you could be Dean Martin. They have all these like named actors as other people.
When they walk into Jack Rabbit Slim's, the beginning of that scene, there's two things that bug me to no end. The square.
Oh,
It's a rectangle. It's clearly a rectangle.
well, it's the only time you see anything like that in the whole movie. But I mean, it's interesting, but it's also like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it used to bug me a little bit because I'm like, did that even happen? I kind of like the idea of it now, and I get that they're just tracing the shape she made, which was not really a square, but it annoys me that it's supposed to be square and it's like double wide rectangle. It bugs me.
Right.
And then Travolta's acting a little bit as they're walking through, and he's like looking at all the impersonator. He keeps pointing at him. It's like, huh? Yeah, aren't you supposed to be? Oh, are you? And he keeps pointing at him. Like, stop it, Travolta! Stop pointing at him. We get it. You're looking at the people who are dressed up as other people. Just stop it.
The camera is pointing us that direction. You didn't need to.
Yeah. That's it. That's my only gripe. Those are my gripes.
That square threw me off for the rectangle.
It's a rectangle. It drives me crazy.